All right, here we go. Our first game in our series. I can't wait. Let's get right into it. We start off with our heroes meeting their first encounter with a horde of beastmen.
And then the intrigue begins as they make their way through the Drakwald. Hi, I'm Chris.
And I'm Matt.
Welcome to Roleplay Chat.
We're two game masters who just can't stop talking about role-playing games.
And today we start our actual adventure, Blood and Betrayal.
Oh, it's going to be good, guys. It's going to be good.
Yeah, so we're not going to go through all the characters because we already did that. Well, just a quick reminder of the situation we're in. So we're in Untergard. We have our different characters. We have Dietrich, who's when we start, is in the temple, little temple of Sigmar in Untergard, talking to Father Pieter. So we had some roleplay there to define a little bit of the characters.
They were kind of exchanging information about different scrolls and books. Dietrich being kind of a scholarly type, so he would have naturally found himself there. We also had...
and there was the thing where you brought a letter, right, to the captain.
To Captain
so that
Schreiler.
was kind of, we established that he was important in the defense of Untergard that happened before. And then there's... Who you're gonna...
I was going to talk about Ungrim. So Ungrim, the dwarven slayer, who had just fought in the battle that we previously mentioned. He's healing up in the kind of, I guess, the medic's bay, if you can call it that, of Untergard, being healed by our other hero, Randall.
Yeah. So they had a little chat there too, talking about the last couple of days or weeks that they spent together. Granny Mosher is usually there to help Randall, but she's not there right now. And Otis, our other player, is at the marketplace, a bit behind, so he's more separate. He's still a loner, right? He's starts a bit like that, so a bit far off.
And I mean, the town, from what I could remember, was kind of in a good mood at this point. They've just fought off what was kind of an unrealistic fight for them to have won. They fought off some beastmen, and the town is in good spirits. The marketplace is kind of full of vendors and things, or as many as there could be, kind of in this wartime. And that, as the heroes are interacting with one another, they hear the bells ringing in the marketplace.
Yeah, bell calling everybody to the Archiplas, the center space, to have basically a meeting where Captain Schreiler has multiple crates of goods, and he gets up on one of them and does a motivational speech saying how the city was able to defend against the horde of beastmen, and how Count Topbringer, the leader of the whole region, the Count, sent them food, wine to celebrate their victory.
Something that would have been quite rare, I would presume, in this kind of situation. And the villagers and the heroes are all, very excited to hear this good news. I think Ungrim said something about the wine, of course, being excited. Wouldn't be as good as dwarven beer, but it'll have to do. That kind of thing. Yeah. And
as the Captain Schreider has one bottle of wine, is like everybody's celebrating, the bottle of wine just bursts, and you hear a shot from across the bridge.
And this kind of scares the townsfolk, They're here getting this motivational speech saying that everything is gone and the danger has been put aside. But yet, there's a surprise attack kind of coming from an unknown source. Dietrich takes this opportunity to quickly run up to he runs up the top of a fountain, right? He runs up to the top of a fountain, pulls out a looking glass, kind of like a small telescope, and looks across the way to see what he can see. And lo and behold, there are more beastmen kind of straggling about the wreckage of what happened in the first battle. So he kind of alerts the town's guard and tells people, maybe shouldn't have screamed out loud that there were beastmen attacking. Maybe that caused a little bit of panic there. But the town's guard start to prepare.
Yeah, Umgrim is there and also notices that with the bang they heard, there was arrows now coming their ways, and it hit Captain Schreiler, who was the closest to the end of the bridge. So Captain Schreiler gets wounded, so the guards come to pick him up, and Umgrim, seeing that, comes into kind of a rage and just like starts running on the bridge, seeing that the beastmen are now coming, sending some minions to attack, probably to get some food. The beastmen don't look super strong. They figure out that this is probably leftovers from the actual army, so they're not that strong. They seem desperate.
And then we've got the rest of our heroes. You've got the town guards setting up, and you have Randall, who cocks his bow, and I think he sends Hackerel up into the air to kind of scout a little bit as well.
Yeah, what happened is they hear Granny Mosher screaming about a missing orphan, Friedrich, who's gone missing. So Randall, being like really kind-hearted and wanting to take care of the orphan first, sends Hackerel to try to find him.
Hackerel being his I guess, eagle. I'm not sure, for those who are new, he's a hawk.
Yeah.
Who he's trained.
Yes, so, and then he helps to heal, well, he goes to Captain Schreiler trying to stabilize him as they move him away from the battle. So Randall is there as a support to start with. And then once Captain Schreiler is secured, he reluctantly takes his bow against the beastmen, because even though like he knows they're bad, but he doesn't like killing stuff, even if it's evil, especially at this point. He hasn't done it a lot.
And while all of this is going on, our good friend Otis is busy doing something else. So he's, like Chris mentioned, he wasn't in the Archiplas. He was actually in a different part of Untergard. And he hears the ruckus, he hears the bell ringing, but being the loner type that he is reluctant to head to the town square.
Yeah, he's like, that doesn't concern me.
But when he starts to hear people shouting about beastmen and danger lurking about, he decides that the best thing to do is to equip himself in some form of armor.
Yes.
Now, he's not the most armor-friendly type of build.
But he's very crafty.
Yeah, so he decides to grab what is around him, which ends up being a mattress, and he kind of burrito rolls himself using belts and springs and coils, and has a mattress wrapped around himself because, you know, that's the best way to defend yourself against attacking beasts.
So in terms of turns, as Diedrich was trying to help the guards to like tell them like you should go defend, Umgrim is at the middle of the bridge fighting off like 3 or 4 of these beastmen. Otis is wrapping himself in a mattress, and because he was like, my armor is not good enough. I need to be bulkier. So it takes a while. He finally gets out of the room, and by
the time he's out, I'd say the battle's done. Really.
Yeah, pretty much almost done. He like got maybe one shot in with a crossbow, I think, or something like that.
So at this point, after Umgrim kind of dispatched of most of them, and we did what we needed to do, the town was a little bit in shock, but we were able to recuperate. You know, Randall gathered people, brought them to the medical quarters. Diedrich kind of helped calm down frightened villagers and townsfolk, and we worked our way to Captain Schreiler to make sure that he was okay. At this point, it was kind of safe to assume that all the danger was gone. We would think, you know, the first attack was done, the second attack was done, but there was more.
That's when Hans Bohmer, Randall's father, came in. He wasn't there in the battle. He wasn't there. He had left for a couple of days. Normally he goes to hunt, and he comes back with bad news. He says, I've seen an army of beastmen coming. So not the one we just fought, like an actual other army coming through, coming from the east. And everybody starts panicking again. Like, I thought we were done. I thought this was behind us. And then Hans Bohmer is just like, we need to leave.
There's no surviving this one.
Yeah.
So at this point, kind of reluctantly, some of the individuals of the town of Untergard start packing their bags, packing what little carts they have. And the players too, they're, the heroes are a little bit unsure. Should we be leaving? Should we be trying to defend? But Hans Bomer kind of very quickly indicates that it's a fool's errand to try to stay here. And we'd most certainly die.
There was some citizen who were like, I'm not leaving my home, I'm staying there, we defended it, we can do it again. But I think like logically there was no way, like 100 people cannot defend, even if it's a narrow bridge, it's impossible.
So everyone's got their carts and belongings gathered, and the party of heroes, along with the villagers of Untergard, start working their way through the main gates, across the bridge, and into the desolate landscape that's ahead of them. The world has been ravaged, the Empire has been ravaged by beastmen, and this news doesn't only devastate them emotionally, but it clearly had a very significant impact on the landscape and the fields and the farms and the lands surrounding their route towards Middenheim.
Yeah, normally there's road warden, there's some little shacks every couple kilometers to secure the roads. Everything's abandoned, there's nothing there. So it's a bit concerning because you never know if something comes out of the forest, there was not a lot of fighter left, right?
No, yeah, most of the people that were traveling were sick, elderly, women, children. Very few soldiers left. Those who were left were hurt.
Yeah, even considering this, everything went well for a little while. On the second day, they reached Grimmenhagen, another city comparable to Untergard. But weirdly enough, the leader, I think it was Hans Bomer leading the whole village, just went around the city, trying to not go through. But the city was still standing in a similar state of in Untergard. So it was kind of weird. So the heroes asked around a little bit, like, why
aren't we going here? We should warn the people of Grimmenhagen of the incoming beastmen that Hans Bomer warned us about.
Yeah, and they learned that the reason they go around is because there's a bad blood between the two neighboring cities, because there's a rivalry. One comes from basically Untergard was built after people from Grimmenhagen weren't happy with the leader and left, so there was kind of there's still a lot of history there. So they're just like, we're not dealing with them, we're just going around.
And you could really feel that kind of resentment when the heroes and some individuals from Untergard walked through Grimmenhagen. As we entered through the town gate, a lot of people kind of would look at us with shady eyes and kind of suspicious glances. But we didn't let that bother us. We continued our trek through Grimmenhagen to find whoever we could find that was in kind of a leadership and position of authority to tell them about the incoming beastmen.
Yeah, and they learned that the actual leader of the city is nowhere to be found. He's secure in some faraway tower. He's not there with his people. The person in charge is the bailiff. So they talk to him and they tell him, something's coming up. We're not telling you what to do, but here's what we know. You should probably leave. And I think you were trying to convince them to leave with you. And they were like, we're not gonna follow people from Untergard. Go ahead, we'll leave, we'll pack everything and we'll leave before the end of the day or in the afternoon or something like that.
And they were for the most part grateful. In times of war, sometimes you have to set aside these silly rivalries. So it turned out to be a positive interaction, although a few slide comments might have been made. But we let that slide, and we continued on our route towards Middenheim, the stronghold of the north, I suppose you call it. So that was pretty much the second day. Night came. During the night, most people had their
sleeping bags, like their
bedrolls.
The bedrolls, yeah.
Not really tents. There weren't really much.
There weren't a
supplies.
lot. There were 2 carts. One was just for the orphans and Granny Mosher, and there was another cart for maybe the elderly and stuff like
the
that.
Sick.
Yeah.
The wounded.
But during the night, they hear the orphan start to cry about, like, Granny Mosher is nowhere to be found.
And with this news, immediately Randall and Otis kind of perk up. You know, this is someone who's very dear to them. And to have her go missing in what's essentially not a war zone, but soon to be, they start to panic. They start asking around. They start asking some of the children, where did she go? Did you see her? At this point, she's been gone for far too long, and it's starting to get worrisome for everyone involved. So Randall, Otis, and the rest of the heroes kind of start trying to track her down. And as they walk through the woods in the dark, they do hear a group of people. They hear the voice of Granny in surprise, and they see bows ready to shoot at Granny. Is this maybe an ambush? We'll have to wait and see.
Yeah.
All right, now we move into the second half of our campaign diaries. And above us is my poor sick baby, 6 months old, and she's coughing up a storm, poor thing. So if you hear that, just sorry.
Yeah,
but,
so in this section, we'll ask ourselves questions about the game. And something we're going to do is, this section is going to be spoilerful. We're not removing any information. There's some stuff that we're going to talk about what's happening behind the scenes. So if you're there only to go to see the adventure as it goes along and all the reveals, then you should probably not listen to that part. But
basically from here to the end of the video, I would skip. But if you're here and you're a game master and you're excited to learn what goes on behind the curtain, and you don't mind having the story spoiled, I would encourage you to stay.
Yeah, we're not going to say that every time. So that's a spoiler section of it. So one thing that's a big spoiler is the fact that Dietrich's character we said he's a messenger, but he's actually a blue wizard. Yeah, so magic in this world is kind of frowned upon, especially in the north. Well,
you're kind of viewed as, you know, being someone who controls these mysterious forces. There's always myths and stories about wizards that kind of go crazy. They kind of go into the dark side of magic. So that's kind of most of what Northerners in the Empire know about. They only hear the bad stuff. So
yeah, they still pay respect, but they are very wary and they kind of don't want to deal with you and stuff like that. Well, in general. So at this point, Dietrich is hiding the fact that he is a wizard.
From everyone, including all the other players. The characters did not know, but the players did not know either. At this point, nobody knows except me and Matt. So so the question I have is, how did you like it? What was your experience hiding not only your backstory, but also your level of power during a combat where it could have been useful, shooting lightning out of your hands? Yeah, I'm sure it could have been. I thought it was so cool. I mean, it's maybe the typical answer, but having these kinds of secrets from other players is always nice. Makes you feel special as a player. And it also added like this neat challenge to myself. I kind of wanted to see like how far could I go? How long could I keep this secret? And how can I still make myself look useful enough to have been a character? You know, like I didn't want the other players to be like, why is he so useless? Why is he like, he's a scholar, but he has no skills. And I remember even writing on my player character sheet, like I didn't have things referring to wizards.
No, because at one point one of the other players was like, "Oh, what's your thing?" and then grab the sheet. Yeah. And you were like, "Don't grab my sheet," but good thing you
like
right.
Even my like core concepts about who I was, I didn't have anything it was something like, "Is a messenger here to deliver important news?" or whatever. Like,
yeah.
It was so I was kind of having this double double challenge to myself. One, keeping the secret, and two, trying to make myself look realistic and actually play this character who's a messenger and would have perks and things that would make him useful kind of moving forward. And I think I did a pretty good job.
Yeah, and we tried together to make... Sometimes you would take actions and you might maybe write something on the side when the players are not looking to tell me what you were actually trying to do, because some of the stuff can be done kind of secretly. And I could give you information and stuff like that the other players did not necessarily know. But always on the low key, because you weren't... Like, we didn't want other players, the other ones to know.
You know, and I think at the end of this game, nobody had a single
maybe
inkling.
Where we're at in the story, you maybe tried something once, not even. It'll come up more and more. But yeah, I really enjoyed that. And one of the things I think I told you when I give you the pitch is a bit like you said. It's like, let's try to hold it for a little while. Not just like, I don't want to do a reveal at the end of one game, right?
No, it had to be a little bit.
Yeah.
I do have to admit that I did feel kind of useless in combat.
That's the price.
But not as useless as Otis. So, like, he kind of covered for me. He was doing useless stuff. So you know what? It was perfectly acceptable for me to also kind of be less important.
You did. I remember you shot a crossbow.
And it missed horribly.
Yeah, I think so. Well, at least you shot a crossbow, and you helped the guards. You grouped up the guards
I gave
together.
Them tactics or whatever.
Yeah, like a leadership check or something like that, and that proved useful. It was a bit later in the combat, but it still proved useful. Where Otis, I don't know. And by the way, we still make fun of him because of that. Like, it's been a while, and we're like, go wrap yourself on a mattress.
And I also have a question prepared for you, Chris, and it's kind of related to this decision where you had Hans Bomer come and tell us to leave Untergard. When that happened, I was curious, and I'm still kind of curious to know if you had like a plan B in case we basically didn't listen to him. Like if we chose to rally a resistance and stay in Untergard, were we just all going to die, or was there kind of like a plan B basically to this?
Yeah. So two things I must say about that. The first one is, before the game, I told my players, this is the first game, it's a new system, it's your new players. I'm going to be a bit more railroady than I usually am. They didn't know me as a game master, so I told them, don't go against the current kind of deal. So I did not prepare an option where you would not go to Middenheim. I did consider it. I was like, let's say you go to somewhere else, then I'm going to improvise it, because there's no way I'm going to... Like, I still have some events for on the road, so I would have reused some of that. But I did not know where you were going. It's too vague, right? I give them one option, so I would improvise the rest, and that's where you need to be okay to improvise. But I felt because I was giving the railroad, it would probably be okay. If you'd stayed, I think I gave a good impression that staying was a bad idea, but I did give NPCs, like, it was not like every NPC was like, you should leave. Some of the NPC were actually...
and that's kind of what made me think, like,
it might be an option.
Might be viable, because some of the NPCs were kind of fervently against leaving. This is their home. So usually, if I'm game mastering something and I do that, it's because it's an avenue that could be explored. So I was wondering, maybe...
For me, it was more about if you can actually listen to everybody. Like, if there's the old hag being like, we should stay and defend our home. If you're like, well, that's an option. Well, later in the camp, like, I think at this point, you know the way I game master, if this would happen, you'd be like, no, I'm not listening to you. At this point, it wasn't clear. But I think because the Captain Schreiler, Hans Bomer, the leaders were saying, yeah, we're leaving. And you didn't have authority to say to the whole village or city, we're staying.
That's
right.
True.
They were leaving.
It was whether we were coming with them or not.
Exactly.
Basically.
Yeah. And if you didn't, well, it would have been, I would have improvised something.
Yeah.
But sure. I don't think there was basically any chance of that happening. Again, because I kind of prepped the game. And I think that's okay to do sometimes. Be like, I'm going to be railroady, especially at the beginning of the campaign. We just started a new campaign. And I had a similar feeling, right? You were like, you know what? First game, we're starting. We want to get stuff done. There's a lot of, I don't know, like we need to get story elements just to start. And a good railroad game at the beginning is, I feel it's a good way to start. So that's what we did. And until we reached Middenheim, it was pretty railroady. So also maybe just to make sure we're complete in our information, we stopped there, but that was a weekend game. So that was
longer, yeah.
So I think the game was maybe 5 to 6 hours. So that's a 2 hour and a half maybe a game where we stopped here. So that's not where we stop in the actual game. We reached Middenheim by the end of the game. So
so we'll get to that one in the next episode.
Yeah.
Awesome. I think that covers up most of it. So thank you very much for listening. Hope you enjoyed these spoilers, and I hope you're enjoying the story.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to like showing off what we did. I think
it's going to be great. All right, so I think that's everything, Chris.
That's all, Matt.
Let's call it a chat.